Now, she was known as the Saint of the Gutter and dedicated her life to the poorest of the poor in Calcutta. Now the late Mother Teresa is to be made a saint. Pope Francis has officially recognised a second miracle in which the nun is said to have cured a man with multiple brain tumours.
The Mandela Effect is causing wild conversations online as people confront memories that might not be true.
Love can do great things. I experienced that love yesterday when we helped a very sick AIDS patient.
The truth is that it's entirely possible that a higher power is controlling the memories we have. Why are government authorities so worried that we can finally break free from their spell? Let us explore how the Mandela Effect can be the ultimate way to control our lives from the shadows. The intriguing power of misremembered histories. Mother Teresa is a name many people recognize because of her dedication to helping others. She founded the Missionaries of Charity and spent many years teaching in India before turning her attention to helping the poorest people living in slums. She believed it was her God-given mission to aid those who were struggling the most. But the simple, glowing stories about her life don't always capture the tough and complex reality of such a life of service. Besides her kind actions, Mother Teresa also became quite famous among religious groups. She was known for her connections with important figures, such as Pope Paul VI. One famous story about her is when she decided to raffle off a limousine given to her by the Pope to raise money for a leper colony. People often point to this act as proof of how selfless she was, but some people might look at this act more critically, seeing it as a carefully arranged act of charity that helped to polish her nearly saintly reputation. Mother Teresa passed away in 1997 and was made a saint in 2016, with some people claiming she performed miracles, like healing a tumor with light from a photograph of her. These supposed miracles have made her a legendary figure. However, these claims also raise doubts and questions about whether they are really true. Moreover, some people think she was considered a saint even while she was still alive, as they recall seeing news articles and pictures saying so. This adds to discussions about the Mandela Effect, a situation where groups of people remember things differently from how they actually happened in history. This debate shows how memories and historical records can sometimes clash, creating confusion about what is true. The discussion even extends to the spelling of her name, whether it's Teresa or Teresa. This minor detail serves as a case study in how even well-known facts can become distorted in the public mind, illustrating our collective struggle with maintaining historical accuracy. Exploring figures like Mother Teresa, it's crucial to balance the narrative between her celebrated acts and the nuanced, often less glamorous realities of such work. As her life continues to be examined and re-examined, both her commendable actions and the controversies surrounding her methods and the portrayal of her deeds deserve attention. This balanced perspective helps us appreciate her contributions while recognizing the complexities of her life and the narratives built around it. In 1934, a radio show named The Adventures of Gracie hit the airwaves in the United States, only to be renamed to The Burns and Allen Show 2 years later. It ran for 272 episodes and was popular enough to make the jump to television in 1950. On TV, it kept viewers entertained for 8 years and chalked up 291 episodes, enjoying a steady place in many households, thanks largely to the routine viewing habits of the audience rather than its comedic genius. George Burns and Gracie Allen, who were the main stars of the show, decided to get married in 1926 after Allen ended her engagement to someone else. This seems more like a convenient match than a storybook romance. In their TV show, Allen played the role of Burns's lovably scatterbrained wife. She maintained this character through 8 seasons, and the show even picked up a few Emmy nominations. Whether this was a testament to the show's quality or simply a lack of better entertainment at the time is up for debate. Allen passed away on August 27, 1964, when he was 69 years old because of a heart attack. Burns, his friend and partner, chose not to marry anyone else after Allen's death. Burns lived to be 100 years old and also died from heart problems. The TV show they were part of is remembered not just because it was funny or one of the first TV shows, but also because it's linked to something called the Mandela Effect, This is when a lot of people remember something happening in a way that it didn't really happen. For example, imagine a situation where many people think a famous line from a movie is one thing, but when they go back and watch the movie, the line is different. That's like the Mandela Effect. The TV show featuring Allen and Burns is connected to such situations, where many people have a different memory of something about the show that isn't true. This makes the show still talked about today, because it's an example of how TV can make people think they remember things that are different from what really happened. The story of Allen and Burns, and how Burns stayed single out of loyalty to Allen, shows how strong their friendship was. It adds a special touch to their history, showing how close they were in their lives and work. The Mandela Effect seems to have tangled its way into not just fleeting memories, but also into foundational elements of popular culture and art. Take, for instance, the television series Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In from the late 1960s and early 1970s. A specific dialogue exchange from the show, "Say goodnight, Dick," "Good night, Dick," has somehow embedded itself in people's minds, even though there's a strong chance it's all mixed up with similar TV shows from that time. It could be that this line has been repeated so often that it has just stuck with people, becoming a part of what they remember as the show, even though it might not be accurate. Despite clear evidence to the contrary, there are still those who firmly believe their memory of the show is accurate. They insist that they remember things correctly, refusing to believe that their memories might be influenced by time or repeated incorrect quoting. This insistence seems less about the facts and more about a stubborn refusal to admit that memories might not always be perfect. Next, we look at how our unreliable memories show up in shows and famous sculptures. Fact, fiction, and Michelangelo's masterpiece. Turning to art. Michelangelo's statue of David is not only a massive piece standing about 2 stories tall and weighing around 12,500 pounds, but it's also a significant break from artistic traditions of the time. Michelangelo chose to depict David not as a conqueror standing over Goliath, but rather in a moment of calm before the storm, with just his slingshot over his shoulder. This depiction focuses more on David's faith and determination rather than the violent end of the battle, showing Michelangelo's innovative approach to storytelling through art. Yet some people claim that details of the statue have changed over time due to the Mandela Effect. This has caused quite a few eye rolls among art historians and experts who know how well documented and preserved Michelangelo's David is. These claims are often seen as attempts to make sense of personal misunderstandings or gaps in knowledge by blaming them on some sort of cosmic error. This idea, while interesting to talk about, generally shows more about our love for turning ordinary misunderstandings into something more thrilling. Let's be real. Michelangelo's David holding Goliath's head isn't as mind-blowing as it's made out to be. The slingshot is purposely smaller, signaling that intelligence trumps strength. But isn't it a bit ironic? The very statue that stands for smarts needed a gang of 40 strong men and 4 long days just to move it half a mile. That effort alone could make anyone question the message. Then there's how people first greeted the statue, not exactly with open arms. Some threw rocks at it, causing damage, and later, in a fit of protest, its arm was broken into 3 pieces. As if that wasn't enough, another enthusiast later decided to take a hammer to one of the statue's toes. Now David stands behind a protective plexiglass, shielding him from further harm, or perhaps shielding us from our own clumsiness. Despite all this, the statue is so admired that it's been copied at least 30 times, with replicas scattered worldwide. It makes you wonder if its charm isn't a bit diluted by now. Researchers intrigued by how people remember this clock conducted a study. Most people remembered the clock as stopped, yet only a few recalled it being fixed and working for years afterward. None of the station's employees could recall any repairs, which is puzzling. This forgetfulness, or the choice to believe in a sadder story, sheds light on how we view our history. We often hold on to the versions that leave a stronger impression, even if they bend the truth. This tendency shows our complicated relationship with the past, where we sometimes lean towards stories that are more memorable, even if they are not entirely accurate. The Mandela Effect continues to draw attention with stories that range from slightly odd to completely bizarre. One user from Italy shared on Reddit his amazement regarding a clock in Bologna that has been working flawlessly for 16 years after it was fixed from an explosion. Surprisingly, most locals seem unaware of the repair, which the user attributes to the hustle of everyday life, with everyone rushing to catch their trains. However, he subtly suggests that there might be more at play here, possibly a deliberate attempt to tweak what people remember. This notion of manipulated realities doesn't just stop with mechanical timepieces. Since the death of Michael Jackson on June 25, 2009, an array of strange theories have surfaced. Some believers of the Mandela Effect argue that Jackson might have chosen to disappear from public life instead of actually passing away. They speculate that he did this to live out his days away from the media frenzy, a theory that teeters on the edge of being imaginative yet hard to swallow. Now let's see how these memory mix-ups affect views on a legendary singer, the horrifying ghost of Neverland. Adding to these speculations, people have seen Jackson's ghost walking around Neverland Ranch, his old house. These stories hit home with fans who maybe find it hard to forget the famous singer. Along with these ghost sightings, there are arguments about changes to his songs and even his well-known outfits. His famous white glove, usually worn on his right hand, has stirred up a lot of talk. Many fans remember it on his left hand. This mix-up between what people remember and what's true starts debates about how good our memories are and what might be changing them. Also, the glove, made to fit his hand, has caused more debates. Some people notice that in some videos and pictures, the glove looks too big, hinting at a possible mistake or maybe something done on purpose. Even though some fans swear they've seen him switch the glove between hands during shows, critics say these are just misunderstandings or made-up stories. Talks also cover his music, with Smooth Criminal, one of his biggest songs, being a key topic. Fans talk about changes in the lyrics that seem different from what they recall, which makes the Mandela Effect even more confusing. This leads to bigger questions about how much we can trust our memories and if we are part of a bigger story being shaped without us knowing. These different examples, all connected by the Mandela Effect, make us question our hold on reality. They push us to check not just our memories, but also why we remember things the way we do and how outside factors might be influencing us. This situation expands our view of what's real, making us wonder if we're just characters in a story made by unseen forces, or if our memories aren't as trustworthy as we think. Many people believe that in a famous song, the singer goes from saying, "You've been hit by, you've been struck by, a smooth criminal," to "You've been hit by, a smooth criminal." This confusion often arises when they actually hear the two versions and can't figure out why they remember it differently. This mix-up is possibly because of a well-known cover version of the song by the band Alien Ant Farm, where the singer switches up the words hit and struck. As a result, some listeners think that their memories have been altered, and they blame this on the so-called Mandela Effect. However, if you listen closely to the original song, you'll find that both hit and struck are indeed used, just at different parts of the song. So it's not that the song has changed, it's more about which version you're more familiar with. Thanksgiving is another topic that confuses many. Despite the fact that it's a major holiday, some people in the US can't remember the correct date. They think it should always be on the third Thursday of November instead of the last one. This belief was highlighted by a man who was sure Thanksgiving happened on November 21st in 1974, right before his wedding. He remembered planning his wedding around having a long weekend right after Thanksgiving. Yet, when he found an old letter and a calendar from that year, both stated that Thanksgiving was actually on November 28th, the fourth Thursday. Despite this evidence, he stubbornly maintained that his memory was correct and blamed this discrepancy on the Mandela Effect. He even suggested that this phenomenon was targeting him personally for some unknown reason. The Mandela Effect has become a popular explanation for when personal recollections do not match historical records or common knowledge. It allows people to insist that their version of events is the correct one, despite evidence to the contrary. This reliance on the Mandela Effect shows a reluctance to accept that memories can be imperfect and that sometimes we might just be wrong. It's more appealing for some to think of their lives as part of a larger alteration of reality, rather than confronting the more mundane truth that memories are not always accurate. This phenomenon feeds into a larger narrative where people feel their personal experiences are uniquely significant, enough to be the target of cosmic changes rather than simple human error. Next, we explore how these memory issues twist the stories of American history, the myths that shaped America's pastime. This idea of baseball as an all-American creation was strongly pushed by Albert Spalding, who was passionate about establishing the sport as a national symbol, distinct from the British game of rounders. During a time when American identity was being strongly emphasized, Spalding saw a chance to claim baseball as uniquely American. He enlisted the help of his friend, A.G. Mills, who was then the president of the National League, to dig up proof that baseball originated in the U.S. Their search led them to Alexander Cartwright and also to the memories of Abner Graves, whose later life in an asylum cast doubt on his reliability. Choosing to ignore the complexities, Mills decided to go along with Graves's shaky account, which eventually misled generations into believing Doubleday invented baseball. This decision made the story of baseball's origins simpler and more appealing, but also created confusion and disagreement among those who studied the sport's history. Rather than admitting to these complexities, that baseball gradually evolved and was not the invention of one man, some people found it easier to blame changes in collective memory or even the Mandela Effect for the inconsistencies in historical accounts. Similarly, the famous Midnight Ride of Paul Revere has been made into a more exciting and heroic tale than it actually was, thanks to Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem. The story that is often told is that Revere rode alone at night to warn that the British were coming by sea. However, historical accounts show that Revere was just one of several messengers that night. His task was important, but he wasn't the lone hero as often portrayed. The dramatic version sounds better, but it's not the whole story. Both of these American legends highlight how stories are often shaped by a desire for nationalism and admiration for individual heroics. Even though Doubleday and Revere did important things, especially Doubleday's military service, their connections to these American cultural moments are more symbolic than actual. Yet people love a story that's easy to understand and share, even if it means overlooking the more intricate and collective nature of history. This approach may make the past seem clearer and more inspiring, but it also leads to misunderstandings about how things really happen. As a result, historians and enthusiasts frequently face the challenge of separating fact from the beloved but flawed tales handed down through generations. Paul Revere's famous ride, often depicted in movies and stories as a dramatic solo mission during the night, wasn't quite the thrilling event we've been led to believe. In fact, the exciting tale where Revere alerts the colonies of the British by himself is largely a creation of the poet Longfellow, who seemed to prioritize a good story over the truth. The real events were significantly less heroic. Revere did not ride from Boston to Lexington alone using lanterns as signals. This method was actually planned by a group called the Sons of Liberty. It was not Revere's idea, but he became part of the plan later. According to a historical letter Revere wrote in 1798 to Dr. Jeremy Belknap, he was in Boston when the lanterns were lit. By the time he borrowed a horse and started his, the lanterns weren't even needed anymore. On his late start, Revere was joined by Dr. Prescott, who actually played a critical role in warning the people of Concord about the approaching British forces. Unlike the story suggests, Revere was captured by the British before he could complete his mission. He chose the wrong path during the escape and was detained. Dr. Prescott, on the other hand, succeeded in delivering the warning. The embellished version of Revere's ride persists because it's a straightforward and exciting story. It fits nicely into the American narrative of brave individuals making a significant difference. However, the true story is a bit messier and involves more people, showing that the efforts to resist British control were a group endeavor rather than the act of a single man. Many people still hold on to Longfellow's version because it's the story they've heard their entire lives. It's familiar and inspiring. They find it hard to accept that the real events were actually quite different. Some even turn to the idea of the Mandela Effect, a phenomenon where a large group of people remember an event differently from how it actually happened, to explain why their memories don't match the historical records. But this is more about human nature and our preference for simple, clean stories over complicated truths. Moving on, we'll see how these themes play out in modern stories and debates. Fact versus folklore in revolutionary history. This preference for a neat narrative over a more complex truth isn't just about preserving a cherished story. It's also about maintaining a sense of identity and pride from believing in ancestors' heroics. The tale of a lone rider speeding through the night, risking everything to warn of an imminent threat, has a powerful hold on the imagination. It's the kind of story that gives shape to cultural values and historical understanding, even if it isn't quite accurate. Revere's ride was just one small part of a bigger network of plans and actions by the colonists to protect themselves from British rule. Recognizing the contributions of others involved in the night's events offers a richer, if more complex, picture of the past. Understanding that history is often a tapestry of many threads, not just one dramatic storyline, can help us appreciate the depth and diversity of historical events. It seems a lot of people who watch Star Trek: The Next Generation think they remember things about the show that don't quite match up with what's actually there. They talk a lot about a pink crystal on Captain Jean-Luc Picard's desk, which they claim has become more noticeable than ever. According to them, this crystal has started to appear very obvious in many episodes, though it was supposed to be just a small part of the background. But is it really possible that so many fans who've watched the show over and over just didn't notice it before? It seems more likely that they're just seeing what they want to see, finding excitement in the idea that the show they love might be changing. The discussions don't end with a prop. They also can't decide who the best captain of the Starship Enterprise is, James T. Kirk or Jean-Luc Picard. Each fan has their favorite, and they can go on forever arguing about who was the better leader. Each captain had his own way of doing things, and neither side of the debate ever seems to win out completely. Then there's a strange belief about Mr. Bumble from a different story. Some viewers insist that the plot around Mr. Bumble was changed because he supposedly never demanded anything in the original story. They think the whole scene has been secretly altered for some dark and unknown purpose. But why jump to such a dramatic conclusion? Isn't it more likely that they're just remembering it wrong? After all, our memories aren't perfect. These heated debates over minor details and characters reveal a group of fans that are more than just casual viewers. They're deeply attached to this fictional universe and pay close attention to every detail, no matter how small. This devotion is impressive, but sometimes it seems a bit over the top. They argue with such passion as if getting these details right could change the world. The Mandela Effect is quite common, especially with famous TV shows like Star Trek. Some fans firmly believe that certain details, such as a crystal or entire scenes, have been added or changed. Every new mention of this crystal in online forums or YouTube videos seems to support their belief. However, the reality is likely much simpler. The crystal was always part of the show, just not as prominently featured as some now remember. This situation shows how minor details can become very important to fans. These fans often discuss who the best captain is or which episodes are the best, focusing intensely on small details. To someone outside the fan community, this might seem overly detailed or obsessive, but it reflects the deep impact the show has had on its viewers. It's interesting to see how dedicated these fans are, investing a lot of energy in discussing every small aspect of their favorite show. To them, these details are important parts that add depth to the Star Trek world. Debates about the most influential captain or the inconsistencies in small props like the crystal keep the community active and connected. While it may seem odd to focus so much on parts that don't change the overall story much, this thorough examination and group discussion help keep the fan base alive and connected. They engage in these debates not just to argue, but to stay linked to a universe that continues to entertain and inspire, turning simple viewership into an active participation in the Star Trek legacy. This vibrant interaction within the community shows the lasting influence of the show and the strong bond fans have with its content and characters. What do you think? Does dissecting every detail enhance your enjoyment of a show, or does it distract from the story? Like, comment, and subscribe to join the debate.